A single company now controls 57% of Australia's hardware market. It has reshaped how millions spend their weekends, pushed independent rivals toward extinction, and woven itself so deeply into national life that a weekend sausage sizzle became a cultural institution. But this empire traces back to 1986, when two immigrant brothers bought a sawmill in remote Western Australia. The rise of Bunnings starts with them. Arthur and Robert Bunning arrived in Western Australia in 1886, drawn by the promise of a growing colony and the urgent demand for building materials. Within months, the brothers purchased a small sawmill in Bunbury, investing their savings and borrowed funds into a venture that would supply hardwood sleepers and planks to the expanding railway and mining industries. The earliest public record, an 1886 notice in the Western Mail, lists the Bunning name beside a newly acquired mill on Murray Street in Bunbury, confirming their immediate entry into the timber trade. The business grew quickly on the strength of its reliability. In the early 1890s, Arthur and Robert secured a contract to provide Jarrah timber for the construction of Trinity Church in Perth. The successful delivery of high-quality hardwood on a tight deadline earned the brothers a reputation as trustworthy suppliers, attracting further orders from both private builders and public works. Each contract reinforced their standing in a frontier economy where delays and shortages were common, and where word of mouth could make or break a new firm. Photographs from the Batty Library show the original sawmill, stacks of raw timber, horse-drawn carts, and workers in rolled-up sleeves, all set against the backdrop of a rapidly changing Bunbury. The Bunnings operation expanded from a single yard to multiple sites, including timber cutting rights in the forests near Margaret River and Busselton. By the turn of the century, the company had established itself as a key supplier for railway construction, mining props, and local building projects across the southwest of Western Australia. The name Bunnings became associated with steady local supply. The brothers managed every aspect of the business themselves, negotiating contracts, overseeing the sawmill, and even handling deliveries. Their approach was practical and hands-on, guided by the principle that a supplier's word mattered as much as the quality of their timber. Surviving in the unpredictable colonial economy meant adapting quickly to new opportunities and setbacks. But the Bunning brothers' persistence and credibility laid the foundation for the company's survival and early growth. Their story began with a sawmill and a promise to deliver what they said when they said they would. Bunning Bros Limited appeared in the official company registry in 1907, formalizing what had already become a cornerstone of Western Australia's timber trade. The incorporation certificate, filed at the state registry, listed Arthur and Robert as directors and set out a capital structure that would support further expansion. For decades, the company operated primarily as a wholesale supplier, its yards stacked with Jarrah sleepers and pine planks destined for railways, mines, and public works. Yet even as the business grew, the brothers kept one eye on the changing face of construction in the region. By the time World War I broke out, Bunning Bros had not only expanded its timber operations, but also operated a shipbuilding slip, producing vessels for the Allied war effort. This period of diversification hinted at a broader ambition, one that would soon reshape the company's relationship with its customers. Through the 1920s and the 1930s, the Bunning yards became local landmarks. Contractors and builders would queue at the gates, but a new kind of customer was starting to appear, the individual homeowner drawn by the promise of quality timber and the growing trend of do-it-yourself repairs. The company responded by experimenting with limited shopfront sales alongside its traditional yard business. Newspaper advertisements from the late 1930s mention not just timber, but also hardware and paint, sold direct to the public from the Bunbury site. The death of Robert Bunning in 1936 brought a generational handover, with sons and nephews taking the reins. Within a year, the company unveiled a new kind of outlet at Strickland Street, Bunbury. The 1937 Bunbury Supercentre blended the existing timber yard with a modest hardware showroom. Contemporary press coverage, as well as the company's own annual report from that year, describe expanded retail facilities that allowed both trade and everyday customers to access building supplies under one roof. A black and white photograph dated June 1937 shows the three-entrance facade with signage for both hardware and timber, confirming the site's dual-purpose layout. While the term supercentre may not appear in the original documents, the evidence points to a deliberate move toward a more consumer-facing model. This approach, combining a working yard with a retail shopfront, set the groundwork for what would later become the hallmark of Bunnings stores. The company's willingness to court not just builders but also householders marked an early recognition that the future of hardware retail lay in serving both markets at once. By the late 1930s, Bunning Bros had planted the seeds of a new format, one that would eventually grow into the warehouse-style superstore known across Australia today. Saturday mornings at Bunnings became something of a ritual when the stores began hosting free do-it-yourself workshops in the early 2000s. The first sessions drew a handful of curious locals, each eager to learn how to fix a leaky tap, lay a garden path, or put up a shelf without calling a tradie. By 2005, these workshops had grown into a national program, with attendance figures climbing into the millions. According to Bunnings' own community reports, more than 2 million people now participate in these sessions each year, many returning again and again to pick up new skills or tackle bigger projects. At the heart of this movement stands the store manager, often a fixture in the community and the familiar face who greets regulars by name. One such manager, with decades behind the counter, describes the workshops as a way to bring people together. You see families come in, kids helping their parents, and neighbors swapping tips over a cuppa. It is not just about selling a hammer or a pot of paint, it is about showing people they can do it themselves. Alongside the workshops, Bunnings introduced a tool hire service, making professional-grade equipment accessible for weekend projects. Customers could rent everything from tile cutters to post-hole diggers, removing one more barrier to home improvement. The convenience of borrowing the right tool for the job, paired with hands-on guidance from staff, turned the store into a weekend destination. For many, a trip to Bunnings became as much about learning and community as it was about ticking off a shopping list. The result was a brand woven into the fabric of everyday Australian life. One skill, one project, one Saturday at a time. In 1994, Wesfarmers acquired Bunnings and set in motion a national expansion that would redefine hardware retail in Australia. The new owners backed a warehouse model, vast, single-floor stores stocked with everything from timber to paint to garden sheds. By 2000, Bunnings had grown from a regional name to a network of over 100 stores, with each new warehouse built on the promise of lower prices and greater convenience. Wesfarmers Investor releases credit the rapid rollout to economies of scale, bulk purchasing, centralized distribution, and a standardized floor plan that could be replicated from Perth to Melbourne. Industry data from IBISWorld shows Bunnings capturing 57% of the national DIY hardware market by 2024. This dominance came at a cost to competitors. In the same period, the number of independent hardware stores shrank by 12%, as smaller operators struggled to match Bunnings' low prices and massive range. One former owner of a family-run hardware shop in regional Victoria described the change like this: "We could not compete on price. Customers would come in with a Bunnings catalogue and ask us to match it. Most weeks, we would lose money if we tried. The warehouse format did more than boost revenue, it altered the shape of the entire sector. Trade group surveys report that many independents either closed, sold out, or shifted to niche products and specialist services. The scale of Bunnings' operation, visible in its sprawling store footprint and relentless advertising, made it the default for both weekend gardeners and professional trades. By the end of the decade, the hardware landscape had been transformed, with Bunnings at its center. Bunnings shapes not just what Australians build, but how they gather, spend, and dream. As its stores spread further, the line between retailer and cultural landmark blurs. In a changing nation, the question is no longer what Bunnings sells, but what it means. What does it mean to you?